dear listener, to this soothing bedtime story on Dream Carriage. Tonight we'll journey together into a collection of enchanting tales, beginning with The Sleeping Castle. It is a story of courage, enchantment, and quiet determination, yet told in such a gentle rhythm that it will ease you into rest and dreams. Before we begin, let us slow down, take a deep, calming breath, and slowly let it go. Feel your shoulders loosen as you sink deeper into the softness of your bed. The day is over. Its worries and busyness have no place here. This moment belongs only to stillness, to quiet, to you. Outside, imagine a night sky stretching far and wide, the stars like tiny lanterns burning steadily in the dark. Perhaps you can hear the faint patter of rain against a window, or the whisper of wind moving softly through the trees. These sounds are not meant to stir you, but to cradle you, a lullaby sung by the earth itself. Your body has done enough today. Your mind has thought enough. There is nothing more required of you now. Allow yourself to be here, to listen, and to drift as the story unfolds. And should you fall asleep before it ends, know that the tale will still be waiting in your dreams, continuing quietly without you needing to follow. So let us begin with two brothers, a distant castle, and a spell that bound an entire court in slumber. Long ago, in a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and wide meadows, there lived a humble shoemaker. His workshop was small, with a wooden bench worn smooth by years of use, and shelves lined with scraps of leather, bits of twine, and tools that had served him faithfully. Though he was not wealthy, his heart was good, and he took pride in honest work. The shoemaker had two sons. The elder was clever in words, but quick to complain, always searching for the easier path. The younger, though quieter, carried in him a steady kindness. He was thoughtful, attentive, and though his hands were less skilled than his father's, he had a determination that shone whenever he was given a task. One evening, the shoemaker sat by the fire, the glow lighting the creases of his weathered face. He turned to his sons with a heavy sigh. "My strength is not what it once was," he confessed softly. "I fear I can no longer provide for you as I wish." The elder son frowned, his eyes filled with impatience. "Then what are we to do? Shall we remain here in this poor village, making shoes no one can afford?" But the younger son placed a gentle hand on his father's arm. "Do not worry, father. The world is wide, and perhaps it is time for us to seek our fortunes beyond these hills. Surely there are adventures waiting, and perhaps even a way to bring honor and comfort back to our family." The shoemaker studied his younger son's earnest face and felt a quiet comfort. He knew the road ahead would not be simple, but he also knew that courage and kindness could carry one farther than cleverness without compassion. And so, with heavy hearts but hopeful spirits, the brothers prepared to leave their small home. They gathered simple belongings, bread wrapped in cloth, and set out at dawn, the sky painted with the faint pinks and golds of morning light. Their journey had begun, one that would lead them far from the cobbled streets of their village, into the heart of mystery, and toward the castle where time itself had fallen asleep. The brothers traveled together across valleys and through forests, their boots pressing into paths that wound like ribbons over the land. At first, their journey was light-hearted. The elder brother spoke often, boasting of the treasures they would find and the fine clothes he would wear when fortune smiled upon him. The younger, meanwhile, walked in quiet wonder, listening to the wind in the trees and watching the way sunlight dappled across the mossy ground. Days passed, and the road grew lonelier. Villages became fewer, the fields turned wild, and a hush seemed to fall over the land. It was as though they were walking into a place forgotten by time. Birds sang less, the air grew stiller, and the trees loomed taller, with branches that knit together like a canopy, shutting out the sky. One evening, as twilight draped the forest in shades of violet and gray, they came upon an old woman sitting by the roadside. Her back was bent with age, her hair as white as snow, and her eyes sparkled with the wisdom of countless years. Before her lay a bundle of sticks, and her hands trembled as she tried to lift it. The elder brother looked at her, but his gaze was sharp and restless. "We must hurry," he muttered. "Old women cannot help us find our fortune." He walked ahead, his boots splashing through the puddles left by the day's rain. But the younger son paused. He stepped toward her, his heart stirred with compassion. "Let me help you, grandmother," he said gently. He gathered the bundle of sticks with ease, lifting it onto his strong young shoulders. The old woman's eyes glistened with gratitude. "You have a kind heart," she whispered. "Because of this, you shall find what your brother will not." From her cloak, she drew forth a small loaf of bread, baked dark and crusty on the outside, soft and fragrant within. "Take this," she said. "It will never grow stale. When you are hungry, break a piece, and you will always be fed." Sam's younger son bowed deeply, thanking her with sincerity. The elder brother scoffed when he saw, saying, "A loaf of bread, is this the fortune you seek?" Yet the younger simply smiled and carried the gift carefully, for he believed in his quiet way that kindness returned to those who shared it. The road carried them onward, up a steep rise where the trees parted, and there, in the distance, they first glimpsed it, the castle. Its towers rose high, silhouetted against the fading sky, their stones dark with age. But unlike other castles, no smoke curled from its chimneys, no banners flew from its turrets. It stood utterly still, silent and heavy, as though the very air around it were held in sleep. The elder brother shivered and pulled his cloak tight. The younger's eyes, however, were filled with wonder, though the castle seemed caught in endless slumber. He felt a tug in his heart as if destiny itself had drawn them here. As the brothers drew closer, the silence around the castle deepened. No birds circled the towers, no rustle of leaves stirred in the gardens. Even the air itself seemed heavy, as though every sound had been hushed by an unseen hand. The elder brother hesitated at the great iron gates, their bars twisted with ivy, long since withered to gray. "This place feels cursed," he whispered. "We should turn back." But the younger brother pressed forward, his curiosity stronger than his fear. With a steady push, the gates creaked open, their hinges groaning after centuries of stillness. The sound echoed through the empty courtyard, startling in the vast quiet, before fading once more into silence. Inside, the castle lay shrouded in an enchantment unlike anything they had ever known. The great halls were lined with tall windows, yet no light flickered from torches or candles. Dust lay thick upon the stone floors, but the air was not musty. Instead, it carried a strange sweetness, as though the castle itself were breathing in sleep. They passed through a corridor where armored knights stood frozen in place, their visors lowered, hands resting on swords that had not been raised in battle for countless years. But these were no statues. The rise and fall of their chests was faint, like the slow breathing of dreamers, and their eyelids trembled as though caught between waking and slumber. The elder brother drew back in alarm. "They are alive," he gasped. "Alive, yet sleeping." The younger nodded, his voice hushed with awe. "The entire castle slumbers. Whatever spell was cast here has bound them all." They moved carefully through chamber after chamber. Servants slumped in chairs, heads resting on folded arms. A hound lay curled by the hearth, chest rising and falling with the rhythm of sleep. Even the cooks in the kitchen had collapsed at their posts, hands still clutching spoons, pots simmering gently, though no flame burned beneath them. The younger son touched one man's shoulder gently, but though the man sighed in his dream, he did not wake. "It is as though time itself has stopped," the younger murmured. "The castle dreams, and we walk within that dream." At last they came upon a grand staircase sweeping upward into the heart of the keep. Above them, chandeliers hung like frozen constellations, their crystals dulled with dust. The elder brother shivered again, his courage faltering. "There is nothing for us here but shadows," he insisted. "Let us leave before we too are caught in this sorcery." But the younger's gaze lingered on the stairway, where a faint glow seemed to beckon, soft as moonlight. Something, or someone, was waiting above. His heart beat faster, not with fear, but with a quiet, unshakable resolve. He turned at his brother and said gently, "If you are afraid, then go, but I will climb, for I believe the answer to this enchantment lies within." The younger brother placed his hand on the smooth, time-worn banister and slowly began to climb. Each step echoed softly through the vast silence, as though the very stones were listening. His elder brother lingered below, torn between fear and curiosity, but dared not follow. At the top of the staircase, a great wooden door stood closed. Its surface was carved with intricate patterns of roses and vines, their petals and leaves curling so delicately that they seemed almost alive. Dust lay thick upon the carvings, yet beneath the gray rested faint glimmers of gold, as though the door itself had once been radiant. The younger brother pressed his ear against it. Behind the door, there was no sound of footsteps, no clatter of movement, only the slow, steady hush of breath. Not one breath, but many, as though a chamber full of dreamers lay within. With a deep breath of his own, he pushed the door open. Inside stretched a magnificent hall, and at its very heart was a dais, draped in silks faded but still shimmering. Upon it lay a figure so serene, it seemed carved of marble at first glance. It was a young woman, her hands folded gently upon her chest, her hair flowing like a golden river across the pillows. Her face was calm, touched by neither worry nor sorrow, as though she dreamed of a happier world. Around her, courtiers, nobles, and attendants slumbered as well, each caught in the same enchanted sleep. Some rested in chairs, others upon the floor, their garments fine, yet dulled by the years of stillness. A hush like the quiet of eternity hung over them all. The younger brother's heart stirred. Though he had never seen her before, he felt as though he had known her always. This was the princess spoken of in whispers, the one bound by a spell so ancient that most had forgotten it. He remembered the words of the old woman on the road. "You have a kind heart. You shall find what your brother will not." And suddenly, he understood. The bread she had given him was not the true gift. It had been his kindness that had led him here, to this moment, standing before the sleeping princess who awaited a destiny written long ago. On a pedestal beside the dais lay a parchment sealed with wax that had cracked with age. He broke it carefully, unrolling the brittle page. The script within told of a curse cast upon the princess and her court, dooming them to endless slumber until one would come, guided not by greed, but by compassion and courage. His breath caught as he read the final line. "Only love untainted by selfish desire may awaken the heart of the sleeping maiden, and with her the castle itself shall wake." The younger brother let the parchment fall softly to his side. He stepped forward, his pulse quickening. Could it be true? Could this destiny truly rest with him? The younger brother stood before the dais, his breath quick and unsteady, his heart filled with a quiet awe. The princess lay motionless, her beauty softened by the veil of centuries, as though she were both fragile and eternal. Her eyelashes rested lightly on her cheeks, her lips curved faintly, as if she hovered on the edge of a smile. He reached out a trembling hand, but stopped before touching her. The words of the prophecy echoed in his mind. "Only love untainted by selfish desire may awaken the heart of the sleeping maiden." He knew then that it was not riches, nor glory, nor power that had guided him here. It was something simpler, purer, a tenderness that came from the same kindness that had once moved him to help an old woman by the roadside. Kneeling beside her, he whispered softly, "If fate has brought me to you, then let it be not for myself, but for you, and for all who lie dreaming in this place." With gentle reverence, he leaned forward and brushed his lips against hers. For a moment, nothing stirred. The silence of ages seemed to deepen, but then a sigh, faint as the rustle of leaves in spring, escaped her lips. Her eyelids fluttered, slowly lifting, and her eyes, bright and filled with life, met his. The hall shivered with sound. Courtiers stirred, nobles shifted. Attendants stretched as if waking from the longest of naps. The clatter of movement swelled until the chamber, once silent as stone, echoed with life. The princess sat up, her gaze never leaving the young man who had broken the spell. "You have freed me," she said, her voice soft yet clear, like music after silence. "Not with power, but with kindness, and for that, I and my kingdom shall be forever in your debt." All around them, the castle itself seemed to breathe again. Tapestries shook off their dust, chandeliers blazed with the sudden light, and the air grew warm with the hum of renewed life. Outside, roses that had lain dormant burst once more into bloom, their petals glistening with morning dew. Birds, long silenced, filled the skies with song. The elder brother rushed into the hall, astonished by the transformation. His eyes widened at the sight of the waking court, but his heart was filled with envy, for he knew it was not he but his younger brother who had earned this honor. Still, no bitterness could undo what kindness had already restored. The younger brother rose to his feet, humble, and offered his hand to the princess. She accepted it with grace, standing tall, her gown shimmering in the golden light, now pouring through the windows. The curse had been broken. The castle, once frozen in endless sleep, was alive again. The days that followed the breaking of the curse were filled with joy and renewal. Word spread quickly throughout the kingdom that the long-slumbering princess had awakened, and with her, the entire castle had come back to life. Bells that had been silent for generations rang once more, their tones bright and jubilant, echoing across valleys and villages. The younger brother was welcomed as a hero, though he himself never thought of glory. For him, the truest reward was seeing the princess smile, seeing the courtiers laugh, and knowing that kindness had restored what greed and selfishness could not. His father, the humble shoemaker, was brought to the castle. His heart swelling with pride and gratitude, he marveled at the sight of his son standing among kings and nobles, yet still as gentle and humble as the boy who had once mended leather scraps in a modest shop. Soon, preparations began for a grand wedding. The castle, now alive with energy, buzzed with anticipation. Seamstresses stitched gowns of silk and velvet. Bakers worked tirelessly to prepare feasts, and musicians tuned their instruments for the celebrations to come. Flowers filled every corridor, their fragrance mingling with the crisp scent of fresh linens and polished wood. On the morning of the wedding, sunlight streamed through tall stained glass windows, painting the hall in a rainbow of colors. The princess, radiant in a gown of shimmering gold threaded with silver, walked slowly toward the dais. The younger brother, dressed simply yet nobly, awaited her with steady eyes and a heart full of reverence. When their hands met, the hall fell, silent. The vows they exchanged were not just of love, but of compassion, humility, and shared duty. They promised not only to cherish one another, but to rule with kindness, to remember that it was not strength or cleverness that had broken the curse, but gentleness of heart. The feast that followed lasted for days. Villagers and nobles alike gathered in the courtyard, sharing food, laughter, and stories. Music floated on the breeze, and lanterns lit the night sky like stars brought down to earth. It was not a celebration of riches, but of community, of life returned, and of a kingdom reborn. In the years that followed, their reign was remembered not for conquest or grand wars, but for peace and prosperity. The shoemaker lived his final days in comfort, proud of the legacy his family had created. And when the younger brother and the princess grew old, tales of their kindness spread far beyond the castle walls, whispered in marketplaces, sung by minstrels, and told to children as they drifted into sleep. So the story of the sleeping castle became not only a tale of magic, but a lesson carried through time, that even the smallest act of kindness may awaken worlds, and that true greatness lies not in power, but in compassion. And with that thought, dear listener, let your eyes close gently. Imagine the bells fading into the distance, the laughter softening into echoes, and the castle bathed in golden light as the world slips into quiet once more. Allow your own breath to slow, steady, and calm as you drift into the deep, peaceful rest that awaits you. Good night.